We got shut down somewhat because of COVID, but we started doing Zoom writes, and it ended up being a great experience. Of course, I prefer to be in the room with everybody, but when you can't, I found out you can actually get a lot more work done. I actually have quite a few songs that made the record from those Zoom writes, and nobody's going to know the difference.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Curtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio. Hosts James Curtis talk to artists and industry insiders to discover the connection between music and faith. You can connect with the show at faithstrongtoday.com/betweenthegrooves or via Twitter @betweengrooves.
Welcome to Between the Grooves, your look at music, ministry, and everything in between with today's top Christian artists. This is episode 213. Our guest today, someone you should recognize, one of the founders of the Christian group Third Day. 4 Grammys, countless Dove Awards. These guys sold millions of albums and had over 24 number one radio hits. We're chatting with Mac Powell, who is now a solo artist. That conversation coming up in just a bit. But first, some other business to take care of. Submissions open for the Juno Awards. That's the Canadian version of the Grammys. Final deadline, November 5th. You can get all the details at junooawards.ca. The first round of judging in December, and then the nominations announced early next year. The Juno Awards returning to Toronto in 2022. They're planning for in-person celebrations once again. Also, a reminder for artists to get their Christmas music into radio stations. Not much time left. In fact, for Canadian artists, you can even try getting your songs to stations beyond just Christian radio. That's the nice thing about Christmas music. It's kind of universally accepted. And since stations in Canada have to fulfill their license obligations when it comes to Canadian content, it's certainly worth a try to get even bigger exposure. And by the way, if you have any newsworthy information to share, send us a note on our socials at Between Grooves on Facebook and Twitter. Okay, it's time now to get to our conversation with Mac Powell. He is no stranger to the CCM world. He just released his solo debut album entitled New Creation. We're going to find out what he's been up to since Third Day said farewell. We'll talk about the difference between the writing process as a solo artist versus Third Day, and what he has up his sleeves for the rest of the fall season and for Christmas, for that matter, and so much more. Let's go Between the Grooves with Mac Powell. So how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm a bit tired and weary. I've been traveling quite a bit. It's all good stuff, but it's, I told my dad yesterday, we were having a conversation, and he asked me where I've been, where I was going, and I said, Dad, that's I get paid to travel. I don't get paid for being on stage. That's the fun part. The traveling is the work. So, but I'm not complaining. I'm not digging ditches for a living. It's fun and I enjoy it, but it can be a bit tiring sometimes.
Is it tiring because it's not the usual given the last year?
That may be some of it, I think. But even if it had stayed the usual, it would be tiring. So it's one of those things. I don't want to say that you don't get used to it, because you do, but there's just something about I don't know, not sleeping in your bed every night and being on a bus one day and a multiple planes the next day, and then driving some of those hours. And so it's just, planes, trains, and automobiles,
yeah.
a lot of movement, and yet at the same time, a lot of doing nothing. So I think it's amazing how sitting on a plane doing nothing can tire you out.
Right. Now, just so everybody is aware, because, we would have some younger generations that would be listening, and they might not be aware of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles being an actual movie. But great movie, by the way. Merry Christmas to you as well.
It's been years since I've even seen that film, but yeah, it's traveling is something that I love. I don't want to stop. I love doing it, but there are times where I get to be home this whole week. I don't leave until Saturday, so I'm excited about just sleeping in my bed. That'll be nice for a few days. Yeah,
that's the highlight, is sleeping in your own bed again, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of people maybe take for granted that gift. And it's like I said, I don't dislike traveling. I actually love it. I think when I get, if by the end of this week, when I've been home for a few days, I'm going to be ready to go on the road. It's not because I don't love my family, and it's not because I don't love being home. There's just something in some of us that we love to travel. I've talked to a lot of people who love that, and a lot of people who would love to do what I do, and a lot of people go, man, there's no way I can do that. So thankfully, I'm just, at least in this part of life, one of those guys that still enjoys it.
I enjoy traveling, but it does take a lot of work, right? Because for me anyways, even if I'm just going on vacation or whatever, you're always trying to line up all the behind the scenes stuff, whether it be just arranging accommodations or, how you're going to get from point A to point B. What are you going to do when you arrive at the airport? Also, thinking about, are all my bills paid before I leave? Because I don't want to pay any service charges for late payments, right?
Absolutely. You got to make sure that stuff is taken care of in advance. There's something about, and you bring up a good point with travel, you don't always know what you're going to get. And that's part of, when I say travel, but it's also touring in the sense of doing shows. People ask me all the time, don't you get tired of singing the same songs over and over? Very rarely do I get, I could be singing, I sing a song like God of Wonders that I've sang thousands upon thousands of times. It doesn't get old because every night is different.
Yeah.
There's a different group of people that you're singing it to, and there may be some people that have seen you before, but overall, it's a different experience. I had a great week of travel this week. Every night was different, and there was a group of different people there that maybe I knew a handful, but overall, it's a great new experience.
Yeah. This is something you've just started to do again, I guess, because number one, we had the whole COVID and lockdowns and everything else. And also, you're now a solo artist versus being part of this. What was the name of that band again? Third Day. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. It's been interesting because even though we've been shut down touring-wise, somehow I was able to go in the fall of last year. I was doing shows with Michael W. Smith and Stephen Curtis Chapman, two brand new artists trying to make their way in the world.
That's right.
But I was out on the road with them. We were doing drive-in theater tours.
Yeah.
So it was the only way we could really tour and still have fans be socially distanced. And it was a different experience. It was very different. It wasn't the normal fun of, hey, we all get on the bus and we're hanging out together and we're, spending a lot of time in the day together, and then we go and we make some music and then we're start all over. It's because, I barely saw those guys. We had to all drive separately to the shows. A lot of times I would show up and be there right before the show started, get on stage, do the show. Now, it was a great experience in that, I'm still, even though I've been friends with those guys for 20 plus years, I'm still a fan. And so I feel like the little kid that got brought up out of the audience to sing a song, and I just never left.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed it, but it was different. We didn't get to hang out as much because of COVID, because of protocols. And, but it, even though it was different, I was thankful to be working and thankful to get to continue to travel. And, but I do look forward to, even though that was a year ago, and now I'm back with Stephen and a little bit more, I don't know if we're quite back to normal, but a little bit more of the normal kind of touring process. We still have strict protocols as far as hanging out with people that aren't part of the tour. And then we have to get COVID tests every week or every other week and things like that. I can't go sign autographs and hang out with fans, so I missed that part of it. So it's not really quite back to normal, but it's a step in the right direction.
Do you find the restrictions are different wherever you go?
They are different wherever we go, but we have some pretty high ones that are placed on the tour itself.
Okay.
And so that doesn't really change. The different states and different areas as far as when you go out and do other things, whether you're going to get, something from the grocery store or whatever. Some places require masks, some don't. Some things, you require vaccine proof and some don't. And so that varies a little bit, but overall our tour tries our best to be self-contained and quite a little bit in a bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing. It just keeps things consistent for you as well. Otherwise, you're just trying to figure out, okay, what are the rules of this next place, and what do we have to keep in mind, right? So
yeah, it's interesting. We're on the subject a lot of touring. When I go to different airports, this sounds silly. I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but when you go through security, there's sometimes different airport, state to state, city to city. Do I get my iPad out of the bag? Or, sometimes they yell at you for getting stuff out of your bag. Then they yell at you for not having it out of the bag. And so it's like, let's get a standard. How are we going to do this? But I guess that's not possible from city to city and state to state. But hopefully things are getting a little better. I think we all thought that things would be back to normal. Once again, I'm not sure if we'll get to it. There'll be a new normal. It's better now than it was a year ago. Let's say that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you obviously, the whole third day thing was a big farewell, I guess, a few years ago now. And
we had our farewell tour June of 18.
Right. And then you started doing something in the country realm.
That's correct.
And how did that go?
It was a lot of fun. I didn't really make a lot of money doing it. I was a brand new artist again, going to these places that not a lot of people knew who I was. It was really fun because it was something I'd wanted to do for years. So when you're able to kind of live out that dream and do something for a long time that you wanted to do, that there's something fulfilling about that. Now, it wasn't very successful in the sense of, building up a new large fan base. Most of the time, a lot of times I would play to people that I knew that had seen me before, and then there'd be other shows where there was no one there who knew who I was, and I didn't know who they were. So it was a different experience, but it was like starting over again, but it wasn't in a sad way. It was very exciting for me. I told people that would come see a show, let's say I was playing a little club in the middle of Texas somewhere in a little town you never heard of, and I'd say, well, the last time you guys saw me, I was probably in front of thousands of people in the arena, and now there's 100 people here tonight. And you may look at that and go, oh, I feel so bad for him. But it was actually a lot of fun for me. You get that rejuvenation of feeling like a kid again, of getting in the van and trailer and loading stuff up and driving hours through the night and sleeping in not great hotels and, just kind of doing what you can to get out there and get the music heard. And so it was tiring, definitely, but at the same time, it was invigorating to me to be able to do that. But I always knew I was going to be doing Christian music again. I knew deep inside, even though that was something I wanted to do with country music, that, and hopefully something I'll continue to be able to have chances at doing here and there. I know this is where I belong. I've really enjoyed being a part of Christian music for almost 30 years. It's where I feel comfortable. It's where I think I'm gifted to do. And so with this new record, I'm super excited about people hearing the album.
You mentioned about the fact that you're kind of the newbie when it was on the country side of things. And it is an easy crossover, really, when you think about it, especially in the Nashville area where a lot of country music comes out of, a lot of Christian music comes out of. I'm thinking what it was like for you doing the whole country thing. And then, of course, coming back to the Christian side of things, easy for you to do. People know who you are already. What was the difference between writing, as far as music is concerned, writing for Third Day versus as a solo artist? Was there a difference?
Yeah, big time. There definitely was a difference. I think in the terms of what I wanted to do and accomplish and how I did it, for me as an individual was the same, but I had never really gone to Nashville to write with, professional songwriters for Third Day albums. But we just never did that. I wrote the majority of the songs, not all of them, but the vast majority of the songs, and I would present those songs to the band and go, here's a song idea, what do you guys think? And then we'd develop it together, and they'd go put their parts on it. With this, I made a concerted effort. I drove to Nashville starting in January of 20. I started going every week, Thursday and Friday, just going up and writing with guys and that were, did it for a living. That's what they do all the time. And so to be honest with you, I thought I was going to not like that experience because it just wasn't me. It wasn't the way I'd worked for years. And I soon came to realize that I really actually loved the experience of that collaboration with those guys who, that's what they're always focused on, is writing. And so I had a great time doing that. We got shut down somewhat because of COVID, but we started doing Zoom writes and writing online, which I thought I would hate that as well, and it ended up being a great experience. Of course, I prefer to be in the room with everybody, but when you can't, I found out you can actually get a lot more work done.
Yeah.
And, I actually have quite a few songs that made the record from those Zoom writes, and nobody's going to know the difference in those and in a song that I sat in a room for a whole day with somebody. So it was a very different process in the sense of working with other people. The writing process was different. The recording process was different than I'd ever done before. Usually in the past, it's me getting in a room with the band and everybody's talking things out, recording it really almost live together. And then, went from that to when we wrote the song, they were demoed up, and then the songwriters and producers would go, and the songwriters were the producers, and they'd add real stuff to it and send it to me. I'd go, yep, that's it, I dig that, and move on. So I listened to a live mix of my record the other day. We did an Atmos mix, which is, if you don't know what that is like this super surround sound kind of different mix that's starting to come out and get more people are hearing about. But that was the first time. I mean, my record's been done for a long time now, for almost a year, really, probably 6 to 9 months it's been done. And that was the first time I'd actually heard it in a studio through speakers. And it's not just my phone or my earbuds or, in my car. So
right.
It was fun. It was different.
These guys that were writing with you, I take it you already knew these guys? They knew you?
Not all of them. Some of them I met for the first time.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I'd say probably most of them I'd never met before. A couple of them I'd met in the past where they had been on the road with other artists playing for them, but most of them I'd never met. So that was an interesting experience, and you soon learn who you work well with together and who you don't. And then I was very blessed to be able to have quite a handful of guys that I continued to work with and will moving forward in my career.
I guess, I mean, they would have known who you were. They would have known your name and likewise you knowing their name. So I guess that would have helped. I mean, it's not like you're starting from scratch, right?
Yeah, but I don't assume that was always the case. I think there were probably, most of them knew who I was and had at least heard about me in
right.
the third day. But I had maybe not heard. I would say over half of them. Yeah, probably half of them I'd never heard of before. Now, when I go and after, it's interesting. One guy, for example, a guy named Ethan Holtz, I'd never heard of. I had no idea who he was. Somebody told me I was made the appointment, so I got together and wrote with him. And just was right away. I was 5 minutes in the room with the guy, and I went, this guy is really good. He should do this more often. And then I looked it up, and he's one of the biggest songwriters in Nashville. But I could tell that he was really great. And then when I studied more about him, I realized he'd written a bunch of songs that I loved already. So, yeah, it was a different experience, and you make new friends, and hopefully some guys that I will continue to work with.
And how many songs did you write in that time period? Because obviously not all of them make it to the album, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say my guess would be probably 40 songs, 45 maybe. And we ended up I think we cut or recorded about 15 of them, and I ended up just doing 10 on the album.
And would you ever release some of those other ones, like either on a subsequent album or, the lost tapes, from the vault or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, sometimes songs don't make it, and it's not because they're not great songs, but you might have another song that has a similar feel or a similar idea, and so you want to distance those songs from each other. So there's at least 2 or 3, if not more, ideas that I know I don't have much of a doubt that I'll go back and either redo or just release that haven't been that aren't part of the album.
Right. And I guess the other thing you could do is you could actually sing and perform these songs when you're on the road and see what the response is, right? If you get a big response and everybody's saying, wow, that's an amazing song, it's like, yeah, that might just have to be another single that we release, or it'll be on the next album, right?
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we used to do that with Third Day. There were quite a few times where we were working on a song, we'd work on the road, and we'd play it live just to see how it felt.
Yeah.
And then if it went over well, we'd put it on the record, and if not, we moved on. And so, yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, you're welcome. No, I'm just kidding. I had a band come into the radio station once, and they performed an acoustic version of a song, and it was brand new. It hadn't been released or whatever else. It was this kind of exclusive acoustic song that they recorded for us, and it was great and everything else. And like a year later, they released the song, but under a totally different title, and some of the lyrics had been changed, and it was really confusing because, like, oh, is that the same song, or is it a different song? It's like, and of course, in my system, of course, I had it in my music library, and I had to go and change the name to the new version of it just so I didn't get confused. Otherwise, we'd play the same song back to back, just two different versions. So
yeah, and there's something good about that too, of being able to live with a song for a while and then it's because it's interesting when you're in the middle of it, you love it, you think it's a great idea, and it's not. Sometimes it's good to kind of get away from it and give it some time, and then reapproach it and go and hear it and say, look, is this really as good as I think it is, or are we just kind of caught up in the moment? I know the band U2 has done an amazing job through the years of they'll have a song idea and they'll do a complete different mix, a complete different feel, sometimes completely different lyrics. They like the music, but they don't like the lyric or the melody or whatever. I've never done much of that in the past. It was kind of like, okay, if we don't like it, I'm moving on. And so it's fun to think that there's always a place for something, and maybe it's a different time and a different place and a different approach.
yeah, and you could have this original idea, and this is how the song's going to go, and then you get into a room with some other songwriters, and they've got some better ideas to make the song even better, whether it's changing the title and also changing lyrics and whatnot. So I'm sure that's what happened in this particular case as well. River of Life getting lots of airplay all over North America. Of course, the album entitled New Creation. What does that mean as far as Mac Powell and Christmas is concerned?
That's a good question. I'm actually working on a Christmas song right now that will be released more than likely sometime probably in November or so.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll be on a Christmas tour with Casting Crowns and Kane and a handful of other great artists, and so I'm excited about that song. I wrote a Christmas song with Kane that I don't think they're releasing it as a single, but it's on a record that they're doing. So yeah, I was actually born on Christmas Day. There's a song on the record on New Creation called 1991, and the very first line says, "I was born on Christmas Day in '72." Which is very true. That's a true statement. I'm a Christmas baby, and so there's something special about Christmas to all of us, but especially me because it's my birthday too. And so Christmas is, it's an interesting season, especially musically. If they're going out in December and doing that Christmas tour with Casting, I'll be excited about that and releasing that Christmas song.
Yeah, the only problem with that though is the whole. Here's a Christmas gift and a birthday gift.
Yeah, it's not something I would suggest to anybody. If you're not that we can choose our birthdays, but if you're going to share a birthday, you don't want to do it with Jesus,
right?
Because everybody's like, "Glory to God in the highest, peace on earth," and all those things, and it's like, oh, and also happy birthday.
That's right. It's kind of the afterthought. Exactly. Yeah. That would kind of that would be a drag. I could use a stronger word, but I won't. So you say you're going to be doing the Christmas tour with Casting Crowns and Kane. Kane's a great band. We've had them on the podcast as well. Those guys, I mean, I shouldn't say guys, but I use guys very loosely there. They're a great family band. Their harmonies are incredible. Love what they're doing. I'm glad they're getting the recognition now, given the fact that they kind of started when COVID started, as far as getting into the limelight a little bit, and I'm really, really, really happy for them.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, I was on tour with them in the spring with Zach Williams, and we had a blast hanging out together and writing music together. And so, yeah, I'm excited about their success, and they're great people on stage and off stage. They're very talented, and yeah, I wish the best for them and look forward to being with them on the Christmas tour.
You know, we get to chat with so many people in the Christian music business: artists, worship leaders, musicians, producers, songwriters, marketing people, and so many more. But it's always great to connect with someone who's been in the business for a while and get their take on things. Really appreciate Mac Powell and all that he's done for the Christian community. Make sure you check out his website, macpowell.com. You can find the links to his music, events, and social media as well. And this is where I would normally throw to a previous guest for some practical artist advice, a soundbite that you can take to the bank and apply. But I thought we'd swing back to Mac Powell. This guy knows the music business. So what advice can he share with us today?
That's a great question. I think my advice is to just do it. Just get out there and play as much as you can. If you're a singer, artist, what you want to do is, like, every chance you get, if it's singing or playing at a birthday party, Sunday school class, talent show, don't look to just doing big things. Be faithful in the small things and go enjoy that and work on developing your talent. Use that as a catalyst to really reach out and grow your fan base. And so I think that's it. It's just do it as much as possible. Even if you're only doing it online, you post stuff all the time. Be faithful about doing enough that will keep people's attention, but not too much. And, you got to just keep working. Keep working, and don't be afraid to do the little things.
So much in there, and emphasizing some important points that we've heard from previous guests as well. Just get out and do your thing. Apply and practice your art. Be faithful in the small things. Work on your craft. Grow your fan base. Be consistent. Keep working. And I'll also add, network with other people in the business. Online, on Zoom, on the phone, over coffee, at events and concerts. We're all in this together. Thanks to Mac Powell for hanging with us today, and to you for listening to the podcast. Lots more great episodes on the way, so make sure you subscribe to get all the updates. And if you can leave us a rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts, that will help us grow and reach more people as well. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter @Between Grooves. That's a wrap for this week. Thanks for tuning in.